1. We're checking out this absolutely gorgeous 1979 Ford F100 Ranger stepside that just popped up on Craigslist. Let me tell you, this isn't your average old pickup. We're looking at a really clean example with some serious work done to it. First off, that original yellow paint is still shining, which is pretty remarkable for a 44-year-old truck. The step-side body style is a real head-turner and pretty hard to find these days. What really gets me excited is what's under the hood. We're talking about a freshly rebuilt 302 V8 with less than 1,000 miles on it. The owner went all in with new headers and a dual Flowmaster Super 40 exhaust setup, so you know this thing must sound absolutely fantastic. The manual transmission has also been rebuilt, and they're even throwing in a spare transmission. That's some serious peace of mind right there. They've also fitted new wheels and tires, which really complement the truck's classic look. Now, about that $22,500 price tag. While it might seem steep to some, when you consider the rebuilt drivetrain, the rare step-side configuration, and the overall excellent condition, it's actually in line with what these well-maintained classics are going for these days. Plus, they're open to offers with that OBO, or best offer. Honestly, for someone looking for a classic F100 that's ready to drive and enjoy, this could be a solid buy. The combination of original paint and mechanical refreshing makes this truck pretty special in today's market. Just make sure to check out those recent rebuilds in person and maybe get a mechanic's opinion before pulling the trigger. 2. We're looking at this 1984 Chevy Silverado, and I've got to be straight with you. The seller's description is pretty minimal, which makes me a bit cautious about that $18,500 asking price. The truck's rocking a wolf gray paint job, and while it looks clean in that classic square body style we all love, we really need more info about when that paint was done. It's sitting pretty with a 3-inch body lift and those meaty 35-inch Falken Wild Peak tires, which definitely give it that aggressive stance everyone's after these days. Now, let's talk real talk. 107,000 miles on a nearly 40-year-old truck isn't bad, but here's where I need to be honest. The price seems pretty ambitious without more details about the mechanical condition, interior state, or any recent maintenance. We don't know if the engine's original, if the transmission's been rebuilt, or what shape the 4x4 system is in. Square-body Chevys are super hot right now, no doubt about it, but I'd really want to see and hear a lot more about this truck's history and condition before considering that price tag. The seller's claiming excellent condition, but with old 4x4S, you really need to verify everything in person. If you're interested, definitely go see it, bring a mechanic friend, and check for the usual suspects: rust in the cab corners, rocker panels, and frame. These are great trucks when they're right, but at this price point, you need to know exactly what you're getting into. 3. We're looking at a real piece of Americana. A 1965 Chevy C10 that's asking $6,500, and I've got to keep it real with you about this one. The seller's being pretty honest, listing this as fair condition, and that's refreshing in today's market. We're looking at what they're calling a barn find without the barn, which is a clever way of saying it's been sitting outside for a while. The good news? Being a West Coast truck means we're dealing with surface rust rather than the terminal rust that typically plagues these trucks from wetter regions. Under the hood, there's a 350 V8 paired with that classic 3-on-the-tree manual transmission, a setup that's becoming increasingly rare to find. The engine turns over, but notice they didn't say it runs. That's something you'll want to dig deeper into. Here's what I really like. The chassis, differential, and struts are reportedly in great shape, which is crucial for any restoration project. The odometer's broken, but hey, that's pretty common for these old workhorses. At $6,500, considering today's inflated classic truck market, this could be a decent starting point for a project if, and this is a big if, everything checks out mechanically. You're not buying a ready-to-cruise pickup here. You're buying potential. This is definitely a project truck that needs work, but with C10S being so popular for restoration, parts availability isn't an issue. Just make sure to inspect that surface rust thoroughly. Sometimes what looks superficial can hide deeper issues. And definitely plan on some mechanical resurrection work. 4. We're checking out this interesting 1971 Chevy K10 that's popped up on Craigslist for $22,500, and there's quite a story to unpack here. Let's dive straight into what makes this truck special. It received a frame-off rebuild back in 2004, which is a great starting point. The owner's done some serious upgrading, swapping in a 97 Vortec 350 engine paired with a 4L60E transmission from a 3/4-ton truck, both with about 40,000 miles on them. That's a solid, reliable powertrain combination that brings modern performance to this classic body. Now, let's be completely honest about the condition. The owner's being upfront. The 20-year-old paint job is showing its age with peeling clear coat, and there are some rust patches to contend with. The bed's been replaced with 3/4 inches plywood, which is practical but not original. They've added some serious off-road capability with Lockright differentials front and rear, and the NP208 transfer case is a sturdy piece of equipment. The truck's got some modern conveniences too, like aftermarket AC and an E85 steering column upgrade. With the odometer having rolled over and showing 57,254, plus the owner's additional 42,479 miles, we're looking at a well-used but well-maintained truck. About that $22,500 price tag, while it might seem steep, it's worth noting that these K10s have been climbing in value. However, considering the peeling paint and rust patches, there's probably some room for negotiation here. The mechanical upgrades are valuable, but you'll need to factor in some cosmetic work if you want to bring this truck back to its full glory. 5. We're checking out a 1975 GMC C10 that's listed for $6,800. And I've got to say, the seller's being refreshingly honest about this one. Let's start with the good stuff. This truck's got a fresh 350 crate engine paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, and it comes from the original owner. That's a solid foundation right there. The running gear is in great shape with new shocks, good brakes, fresh fluids, and recently packed wheel bearings. And hey, those straight pipes probably make it sound pretty mean. Now let's keep it real about what you're getting into. This is definitely a project truck in progress, and the seller's being upfront about what still needs attention. We're talking about some significant bodywork needed: floor pan replacement, lower quarter panels, and a battery box. The interior needs some love too, with seat covers and door latches on the to-do list. And there's a muffler waiting to be installed. At $6,800, you're essentially buying a solid running truck that needs some serious bodywork. The good news is the expensive mechanical bits are already sorted, and being a C10, parts availability is excellent, and there's tons of community support. One interesting detail: the truck's currently in Grants Pass, Oregon, but heading to Santa Cruz when weather permits. That's worth considering if you're planning to look at it. 6. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1974 Ford F350 dually that's caught my eye on Craigslist for $14,800. And I've got to say, this one seems to have been given some serious attention. What we've got here is a 9-foot flatbed dually with a 360 CIV8 paired to a 4-speed manual, a proper old-school work truck setup. The seller's claiming excellent condition, and they've backed that up with quite a list of recent improvements. We're talking new interior, new stereo system, fresh tires and brakes, and they've even installed new tongue and groove wood on that flatbed, which is always a nice touch on these vintage haulers. One of the most impressive claims is the no rust statement, which is pretty rare for a truck of this age. The paint and chrome are reportedly in excellent condition too, and those dual gas tanks give you some serious range. The odometer shows 41,600, but it has rolled over, so keep that in mind. At $14,800, we're not in bargain territory, but we're also not in crazy price territory for a well-maintained classic dually, especially if all those excellent condition claims check out in person. These old F350s were built to work, and finding one that's been preserved and updated while maintaining its original character isn't easy. Just remember to verify all those condition claims in person. Check under that flatbed, inspect the frame thoroughly, and make sure that 360 runs as good as they say it does. If everything checks out, this could be a solid buy for someone looking for a classic dually that's ready to work or show. 7. We're checking out a pretty special 1972 Dodge D100 short bed that's listed for $18,000. And I've got to tell you, this one's got some impressive credentials. First off, being a Southern California truck is a huge plus. These old Dodges were notorious for rust issues, but this one's claimed to be rust-free, which is a massive win. Under the hood, we're looking at the original 318 V8 paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, a bulletproof combination that Dodge got absolutely right. What really catches my attention is that this truck received a complete restoration in the early 2000s and has been garage kept since then. That's about 20 years of careful preservation. The beautiful oak bed is a standout feature, and it's still rolling on its original wheels with those classic hub caps, details that classic truck collectors absolutely love. The undercarriage is reportedly super clean, and the engine bay is well maintained, both crucial points for these vintage trucks. At 81,000 miles, it's been used but not abused. One interesting detail is the auxiliary gas tank filler, though the tank itself is missing, which is a neat original feature. Now about that $18,000 asking price, while it might seem steep to some, restored D100S in this condition are getting harder to find. The combination of original powertrain, documented restoration, and careful preservation since then makes this more than just another old truck. 8. We're looking at something pretty interesting. A 1979 Ford Ranchero that's popped up for an incredibly low $1,900. And folks, this might be one of those hidden gems we're always hunting for. Let's get real about what we're looking at here. The seller has reportedly invested over $7,000 into this car-truck hybrid, and the list of new parts is impressive. We're talking about a fresh motor from Action Cylinder Heads, with only 30 miles on it, new gas tank, fuel lines, tires, carburetor, radiator, and master cylinder. They've even sprung for reupholstered seats, $1,000 worth, and new carpet. This is a GT model with power windows, though the motors need replacing, and that sweet GT dash. The body's straight, but has some dings, and it definitely needs paint. But here's the kicker. It runs and drives perfectly, according to the seller. Now let's talk about that $1,900 price tag. It's surprisingly low, considering the recent mechanical investments. When someone says they've put $7,000 into a vehicle and they're selling it for $1,900, it usually means they need to move it quickly. This could be an absolute steal for someone willing to tackle the cosmetic issues. The Ranchero is a unique piece of American automotive history. Not quite a car, not quite a truck, but all awesome. At this price point, even with the needed finishing touches, you could end up with a really cool driver for way less than market value. 9. We're looking at a 1973 GMC K20 Suburban that's listed for $6,000, and I've got to keep it real with you about this one. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. This is a non-running project vehicle that's been sitting since 2016. The seller's being honest about its condition, listing it as fair, and openly discussing its current state. The original 350 small block is partially disassembled, stripped down to the block, and just needs the motor mounts and transmission bolts removed to come out completely. The good news? It's a two-owner vehicle with documented history. The current owner bought it from the original owner in 2001 and drove it until 2016. It's got the desirable 4-speed manual transmission and 4-wheel drive setup, with about 151,000 original miles. Now let's talk about that body condition. The seller's refreshingly honest about the usual GM rust, or patina, as some might optimistically call it. We're looking at rust in the typical trouble spots: rocker panels, rear and front fender wells, and surface rust on the roof. Being 50 years old, this kind of wear is pretty much expected. At $6,000, though interestingly the seller mentions asking $13,000 in the description, you're buying a project that needs significant work. The good news is these K20 Suburbans are becoming increasingly desirable, and parts availability is generally good. However, you'll need to factor in the cost of either rebuilding the existing engine or sourcing a replacement, plus addressing that body rust. 10. We're checking out a 1966 Chevy C10 that's listed for $25,000, and this one's got some interesting mods worth talking about. Let's dive right in. This is an older restoration with a performance twist. Under the hood, there's a 400 small block Chevy paired with a 400 turbo automatic transmission. Now the seller's being upfront that there's no history on either the motor or trans, though they did just replace all the transmission seals, which is good to know. One of the coolest upgrades is the Camaro subframe swap, which brings modern handling and front disc brakes to this classic. They've also gone for some custom touches like shaved door handles with door poppers, definitely giving it that clean, custom look. The truck's rolling on new BF Goodrich tires and rims, and there's a pretty serious $1,200 stereo system installed. Now let's keep it real. The seller admits it's not perfect, but very cool, which is refreshingly honest. At $25,000, we're in serious money territory for a C10, even in today's market. While the mods are desirable, the lack of engine and transmission history is something to consider carefully. This seems to be built more as a cruiser show truck than a daily driver, with those custom touches and performance upgrades. For someone looking for a modified C10 that's ready to enjoy, this could be interesting. Just make sure to thoroughly inspect all those modifications and maybe get a mechanical inspection, especially given the unknown history of the powertrain. 11. We're looking at something really special, a 1966 Chevy El Camino with an incredible story, listed at $21,200. And folks, this is one of those rare finds that makes you sit up and pay attention. What we've got here is essentially a two-owner vehicle with an amazing history, purchased new by the seller's father, with the current owner actually present during the original dealership purchase. He then bought it from his dad around 1973 and has kept it ever since. That kind of documented history is absolutely golden in the classic car world. The El Camino is running a 327 cubic inch V8 that was swapped in during the mid-1970s, paired with a 3-speed manual column shift transmission. Here's what's really interesting. The original 283 short block comes with the sale, meaning there's potential to return this beauty to numbers matching status if desired. With 118,000 miles on the clock, it's been driven but clearly well maintained, having even made appearances at car shows. The seller's description of very good condition and their desire to see it restored to original condition suggests this is a solid, honest example of these increasingly desirable car-truck hybrids. At $21,200, considering the documented history, original paperwork, and the inclusion of the original engine, we're looking at a fair price in today's market, especially for a vehicle with such a clear, documented lineage. These El Caminos are becoming more collectible every year, and finding one with this kind of history is increasingly rare. 12. We're checking out this 1984 GMC Sierra that's popped up on Craigslist, and I've got to tell you, I'm pretty excited about this one. At $18,500, we're looking at a completely restored classic truck, which is honestly a pretty interesting find in today's market. This Sierra is rocking its original gas engine paired with an automatic transmission, which makes it a practical daily driver if you're into classic trucks. What really catches my attention here is that the seller claims it's been totally restored with everything new. Now, while we don't have all the specific details, they're asking to call for more info. Having a clean title is definitely a big plus. Being completely honest with you guys, the asking price of $18,500 is sitting in the higher range for an '84 Sierra. But if the restoration work is as comprehensive as suggested, it might be justified. These square-body trucks have been climbing in value lately, and a properly restored example can be a solid investment. Just remember, as with any restored classic, you'll want to get a good look at the quality of the restoration work and documentation of what's been done. I'd definitely recommend calling the seller to get the full scoop on all the new components and the extent of the restoration. Keep it real, fam. That's what matters when you're looking at classics like this. 13. We're diving into this sweet 1976 Chevy Silverado stepside that just popped up on Craigslist for $17,900. Let me tell you, these short box stepsides are getting harder to find, especially in decent shape. Let's keep it real here. We're looking at a truck with an odometer showing 103,140 miles, but the seller's honest about it having rolled over, so we're talking more miles than that. But here's the good news. It's packing a 350 crate motor, which means you've got a fresh V8 heart under that hood, paired with an automatic transmission sending power to the rear wheels. The seller's being straight up about this one. It's not a show queen, but it's not a rust bucket either. They've done some restoration work and everything's reportedly working as it should. I appreciate that kind of honesty in a listing. The truck's described as being in good condition, which means it's a solid driver that could be elevated to show quality with some additional TLC. At $17,900 OBO, you're in the ballpark for a clean, classic stepside, especially with that crate motor. The combination of the short box and stepside bed makes this a desirable body style, and these C10S have been steadily climbing in value. Plus, they're willing to consider trades, which could make for an interesting deal. 14. We're checking out something really special, a 1965 Ford Ranchero that's got me pretty excited. Let me tell you why this $25,000 listing caught my attention. First off, this isn't your average Ranchero. We're looking at a deluxe model in jet black with a red interior, which is just a killer combination. The seller's done some serious upgrades that really matter. They've dropped in a 302 V8 paired with a top-loader 4-speed manual transmission. That's the good stuff, folks. If you know your classic Fords, you know that top-loader is one of the most robust transmissions they ever made. What really impresses me is the attention to the driving experience. They've upgraded to a close-ratio steering box and added an I Did It tilt column, which makes this classic way more enjoyable to drive. The power front disc brake conversion is a huge safety upgrade over the original drums. Those Keystone mags wrapped in BFG tires are just perfect for the era and style. The odometer shows 89,461 miles, and with a clean title, that's promising. They've even thought about modern conveniences with a professionally installed new sound system. That's the kind of upgrade that makes these classics more livable as daily drivers. At $25,000, we're looking at a well-sorted Ranchero that's ready to cruise. The seller makes a good point. Trying to build one to this level would likely cost way more. These Rancheros are getting harder to find, especially in this condition with these kinds of thoughtful upgrades. 15. We're checking out a seriously interesting 1981 Chevy K5 Blazer that's caught my attention on Craigslist for $22,500. Let me tell you why this one's special. We're looking at a documented two-owner vehicle with some really cool history. Let's keep it real here. The seller's being super transparent about everything. The original paint is still there, and they're honest about it being a 30-foot looker. Under the hood, you've got the original 305 V8 showing just 25,915 miles, paired with a serviced automatic transmission and proper 4x4 setup with floor shifter and front hubs. They've done some meaningful updates that matter. New floor pans, done by Hub City Hot Rods, fresh seats, new floor pad, black carpet, and a modern Alpine stereo with Pioneer speakers. The interior's gotten some love with LED lighting upgrades, and all the dash gauges are working. That's pretty rare for these old Blazers. What's really cool is the Les Schwab lift package and those BF Goodrich all-terrain TAs with 85% tread left. The white fiberglass top gives it that classic K5 look we all love. They're upfront about the rear window not rolling down, which is typical for these models. For potential buyers, here's what makes this one stand out. Documented history since new, started life in Lebanon, Oregon, clean Carfax with service records, and tons of new parts including brakes, windshield, and various interior pieces. The bucket seats up front and flip-forward rear bench are great features for functionality. 16. Let's talk about this super unique 1978 Ford E150 that just popped up on Craigslist for $9,500. And when I say unique, I mean it. This isn't your average E150. This is a Pathfinder 4x4 conversion van, and these are seriously rare birds. Let's keep it 100% real here. The seller's being straight up about everything. The van's got a modified Mustang 5.0 V8, bored .20 over, with performance upgrades including a cam, Edelbrock carb and manifold, all hooked to a C6 automatic transmission, and a 202 transfer case. That's a serious powertrain setup. Now here's the honest scoop. There are some issues to consider. The seller mentions electrical problems, and the odometer shows 5,543 but is rolled over. They've put about 75K miles on it since 2003, so we're talking about a well-used vehicle. But here's the good news. It's got recent brakes and a new battery. And importantly, they note there's very little body damage or rust, which is huge for a van of this age. At $9,500, you're looking at a project that needs some electrical work. But let's be real. Finding another Pathfinder 4x4 conversion E150 would be like finding a needle in a haystack. These conversions were professional and well done. And with that modified 5.0 under the hood, this could be an awesome adventure rig with some TLC. 17. We're checking out this 1985 Chevy K10 that's popped up on Craigslist for $10,500. And I've got to say, I appreciate how honest the seller is being about this truck. Let's dive right in. We're looking at a classic K10 with a solid 350 V8 featuring 4-bolt mains, which is the good stuff, folks. It's paired with a 4-speed automatic with overdrive and a lock-up torque converter. But here's what really catches my attention. It's got the bulletproof NP205 transfer case. If you know these trucks, you know that's the one you want. All gear, no chains. The seller's being super transparent about everything. They recently took it on a 920-mile road trip, which says a lot about its reliability. It's got some nice creature comforts too. Working cold AC, that's huge. Cruise control, power windows and locks, and a tilt wheel. Plus it comes with a camper top, which adds some serious utility. Now let's keep it real. There are some issues. The seller's upfront about rust in the quarter panels and under the doors. That's typical for these trucks, but it's something you'll want to address if you're planning to keep it long term. The odometer shows 61,000 miles, and it comes with a clean title. At $10,500, considering the current market for square bodies, you're looking at a driver-quality K10 that needs some cosmetic love, but appears to be mechanically solid. The fact that it just completed a long road trip with no issues is a good sign. 18. We're diving into something really special, a 1966 Ford F100 that's been given some serious love, listed at $18,500. And let me tell you, this one's got my attention. What we're looking at here is a beautifully restored classic with just 1,500 miles on the build. Under the hood, you've got a 352 V8 with a 4-barrel carb, paired with an automatic transmission. But it's not just about power. They've thought this build through with some really smart upgrades. Let's talk about the good stuff. They've completely rewired the truck. That's huge for these old Fords. Installed an I Did It tilt steering column and rebuilt the front end. The cooling system's been upgraded with a 4-core aluminum radiator, which is exactly what you want for reliable cruising. Power steering and power drum brakes make this classic actually enjoyable to drive. The cosmetics are on point too. We're talking a fresh, dark cherry and silver paint job on what the seller describes as a very straight body. The interior's been completely redone in silver gray, and they've added modern touches like all new gauges. Those Krager wheels with fresh rubber really set off the look, and the sprayed-in bed liner adds practicality. What really impresses me is that they've kept documentation. We're talking receipts for the work done, and even the original owner's manual. That kind of paperwork is gold for classic trucks. 19. We're looking at something really special. A 1949 Studebaker 2R5 pickup that's listed for $19,000. And let me tell you, this isn't your everyday classic truck find. What we're looking at here is a piece of American automotive history. This 2R5 is rocking its original inline-6 Econ Miser engine, paired with a 3-speed manual transmission mounted on the column. The odometer shows 88,000 miles, and it's sporting a clean black paint job that really showcases those revolutionary post-war design lines. Let's talk about why these trucks are so special. This was one of the first American pickups designed without running boards, giving it a sleeker, more modern look that was way ahead of its time. The double-walled bed was revolutionary for 1949, preventing dents from showing through on the exterior. Pretty clever engineering for the era. The dimensions are perfect for a classic pickup. about 185 inches long with a 112-inch wheelbase and a practical 6.5-foot bed. This isn't some massive modern truck. It's a perfectly proportioned classic that still makes sense today. At $19,000, you're looking at an investment in a piece of automotive history. These Studebaker trucks are getting harder to find, especially in excellent condition as this one's described. The combination of the clean title and what appears to be a well-preserved example makes this pretty interesting. For someone looking for something different than the usual Ford or Chevy offerings, this Studebaker represents a unique opportunity. It's a conversation starter that combines classic style with some genuinely innovative engineering for its time. 20. We're checking out a seriously interesting 1970 Chevy Suburban 4X4 that's listed for $25,000. And this isn't your average grocery getter, folks. Let's get straight to the meat of this build. We're looking at a 383-stroker small block Chevy, that's the good stuff, paired with a TH700R4 transmission and the bulletproof NP 205 transfer case. They've upgraded the running gear with 1976 3/4-ton truck axles, which is a smart move for handling bigger tires and more power. Speaking of suspension, this thing's sitting pretty on an 8-inch Superlift leaf spring setup, rolling on fresh 37-inch Interco Traxxas MT tires. That's a serious off-road capable combination right there. The odometer's showing 36,000 miles but is broken, so take that number with a grain of salt. Now let's keep it real. The seller's being honest about the body condition. While it's straight, there's some rust breaking through in places. That's pretty typical for these old Suburbans, but it's something to consider. On the bright side, they're including a ton of extra parts, including Blazer bucket seats with a console, all the original seats, new period-correct GM seat belts, original steering wheel, and door panels. At $25,000, you're looking at a well-built classic Suburban with some serious upgrades. The combination of the 383-stroker, upgraded transmission, and heavy-duty axles makes this a capable rig that could handle both street and trail duty. These early Suburbans are getting harder to find, especially in 4X4 configuration.